it's Robert Gowan sitting here at Mentors Military at 15 Perry Street, and appreciate these guys. If you like the show and the content, make sure you go out to Patreon, patreon.com/mentors, the number 4 MIL, to help us out. You can become a donor there in whatever range that you want to do, or pick your own, and we'd appreciate all the support. Sitting here with my sidekick, Paul Martinez. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, doing good, Rob. Glad to be back.
So we have a guest who's actually my neighbor, and we thought it'd be really cool. We actually sat down, what was it, Don, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and dreamed this whole thing up and trying to get the whole thing arranged. So appreciate you coming on the show, Don.
Thanks for having me.
We want to get into, though, the humble beginnings. I know you're a Georgia boy.
Yes.
So when you were growing up, did you play sports, football, or something like that?
I did. I played football.
Yeah.
I grew up playing football. I grew up in Jonesboro, which isn't far from here.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Jonesboro High School.
See, that's Clayco. That's Clayton County.
That is Clayton County.
Yes. Okay. I only know that because I used to live over on that side, and we lived in Fayetteville, but we actually lived on the Clayton County side of the line.
Yeah, I used to work down there in Clayton County.
Did you? That's right.
As a police officer.
We're gonna get to that in just a moment. So when you graduated high school, what made you go into the Marine Corps?
So I went to a private boarding school.
So there's a break from Jonesboro.
There's a prequel to Jonesboro. So I went to a private boarding school from 6th grade to 10th grade, and they just didn't have there wasn't a big athletic program, and I had aspirations of playing college football.
Yeah. So
came home from boarding school, went to Jonesboro, and Jonesboro at the time they were I don't want to say a powerhouse football team, but put it this way. Having played at a small school and going to a big public school, I was nowhere near as good as I thought I was. So Jonesboro High School for a couple of years, and Georgia Southern, tried to do the old walk-on thing.
Yeah.
It didn't work out great for me either.
Yeah.
So
why? I mean, Georgia Southern didn't get a chance to really play a lot and stuff there. And
I didn't make the team. I tried out, and they were like, "Hey, you're just not as good as you thought you were."
What position did you play?
I played outside linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah. The talent, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I went to Georgia Southern, and like a lot of guys, my grades weren't they weren't great.
Usually it either happens before or it dives when you get there. A lot of pressure. You're on your own. Yeah.
So I made it.
A lot of alcohol.
A lot of not doing what I should have done in any aspect. But it was a lot of fun. And my stepdad, he was a Marine. He did a couple tours in Vietnam. I grew up. Strangely enough, you would never think this when you meet the man, but he's a photographer, and so he had the old, what are they called, where you could put them in a projection, the slides.
Yeah,
he had all the slides of all his time in Vietnam, and it was this beautiful country, and there were all a lot of war stuff, right? So I kind of grew up knowing, hey, this dude's he's an old grumpy old Marine, right? And I mess up in the house, whatever's going to happen. But when things didn't work out with college, that was all I really wanted to do. Like I just wanted to be a Marine.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell my parents. I didn't, it wasn't like, oh no, it was like I knew the grades were coming out in 2 weeks, so I'd already sent the recruiter.
You had to have your contingency backup plan.
I had the backup plan, and my best friend, Robert Bouchard, we both, basically decided that college at that time wasn't for us, so we both joined the Marine Corps, and we knew within like 2 weeks that there wasn't going to be a next quarter of Georgia Southern. It was we're going to Parris Island. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
What did you end up doing for the Marines?
Yeah.
So I was an aviation operations specialist.
Okay.
So basically, we explained it like anything a pilot doesn't want to do that's work other than fly the aircraft. That's what we did. So we sort of, we would anywhere from lining up the proper aircraft. So if the CO or XO said, hey, listen, these are the missions we're going to fly for the week, we would, we'd make sure the aircraft ready to go. We'd get together with the weather guys. We'd make sure that pilots were rated for whatever they're going to fly. So basically, we just kind of pulled the whole mission for the squadron together.
It's I've told this story before on the podcast, but I was going to go into aviation electronics. Growing up in Florida, around I was around Whiting Field, Milton, Florida, and the Navy, And that's where they train the pilots, and then they end up going over to Pensacola, or they fly whirlybirds, helicopters over on the other side, and all that kind of stuff. So my dad was involved with seaplanes, when I was growing up as a crew chief, and I thought that's what I want to do. I want to do something like that, aviation, it's big. And so when I went down and talked to the Marine Corps, I remember that my mother had told me, you need to go check out all the services. Well, I walked into the Army's recruiting station with my Marine Corps pamphlets, and the guy instantly thought, oh, you want to go combat arms. If you're going to go Marine Corps, you might as well just go combat arms in the Army. And by the way, we're offering a $3,000 sign-on bonus. Now, this is a long time ago. $3,000 is a lot of damn money. And but at any rate, with the bonus and stuff, it was like, yeah, man, I'll do it. And I ended up going into armor. But aviation electronics sounded so cool in the Marine Corps. And was that like the same sphere of aviation operations?
It was. So I was actually going to be an air traffic controller. Like when I went in and took the ASVAB and you get your list of jobs that you qualify. Like I don't remember how all this goes, but there was a GT score cut off, and they claimed anyway, hey, you got this GT score, you can do all these things. They're like, you should be an air traffic controller, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. And then as I'm going through it, it's like the school was like in Oklahoma for 3.5 years or whatever it was. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. And it would have basically, so the commitment would have went from, the typical 4-year contract to now 7 years. Because you do your school and then you
owe years. Them 4 years.
Yeah. But, the pitch was, hey, listen, if you do this, you get out, you can go be a civilian air traffic controller. Oh, yeah. You're going to make big money. Yeah. Life's going to be great. Whatever. I couldn't get past the 3-year school, like Oklahoma for 3 years. It just, they're like, or this other thing, aviation operations, we give you, 16 weeks down in Meridian, Mississippi. I was like, I'll take that. So that included the 4-year commitment.
Now, see, the Marine Corps, though, you're not, this is my recruiting side coming out. You're not like guaranteed. So when you go off to boot camp, you could get reclassed, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen to you.
Needs in the Marine Corps. It did not happen to me.
Okay.
But,
so how does that work? You like make a wish list? Or I
don't know.
How
how
your
does
first
that work?
choice?
Yeah. So you sign a contract, and basically the deal is, hey, if you can fulfill the requirements, if you don't rock out of the school or whatever it is, then you will get this MOS.
Okay.
But I guess if things had changed, I'm sure there was some caveat somewhere where the Marine Corps could do with you whatever you want.
But they test you on something, right? Some other thing they do in boot camp that they then use that along with the original ASVAB to make determinations if you're going to wash out potentially of the other or no? Or?
No. It was the regular ASVAB, and you go through boot camp, and then you get your your MOS school, which was in Meridian, Mississippi, and so long as you don't fail out of that, then that was
okay.
Yeah, but when you're in your MOS school, that's when you get to pick what your duty location is going to be and that type of thing. So,
all right.
I got my number one duty location.
What was it?
Mag 42, right here in Atlanta.
No way.
Yeah, HMLA 773. Yeah, the Red Dogs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, now that's an Air Force. I know the Air Force base.
It's an Air Force base, but there's actually a Marine Corps squadron on the base.
No lies.
Yeah, it's a reserve squadron, but it's there. They still fly the Cobras and the Hueys.
Wow.
Well, that's what I see sometimes flying over then.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't know anybody was still flying Hueys.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
My understanding is the Huey just got a big upgrade. So
this is the Marine Corps we're talking about. They get all the leftovers and everything. Yeah. So the Cobras
forever. You kidding me?
If you're listening and you're on Fort Bragg, do they still haul the artillery around with the old Willys Jeeps? Just post on our social media. I saw that when I was up there in 2010 or 12, and I was like, that's like my grandpa's old Willys Jeep.
Yeah,
that he had in World War II, and they're still hauling howitzers with them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a reserve unit, but
yeah.
Well, I thought that was mainly like C-130s up there.
So they have a big they bring in C-130s from around the world because Lockheed's there. They'll bring the C-130s in for whatever maintenance, refurbishing. So there's a lot of cool stuff up there, and they also at one point built the F-22s, I believe.
Oh wow,
there, yeah.
So I had no idea.
Well, we definitely saw it flying. This was like 1996. That was the first time I ever seen an F-22, and it flew down the thing, had the wheels down, and one of the pilots like, oh yeah, they're testing the thing out, and I was like, that is the coolest looking jet I've ever seen in my life,
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I had no idea. My thought was it's like a guard or reserve unit type of thing, and I remember good friends of ours, a guy I served in the Army with. He retired a number of years after me. His son went to the Air Force Academy to flight school and ended up choosing C-130s. And I remember he went through some training or did something up there. I remember him flying in up here, and then he would come down and see us and visit with us over, a day or two and stuff, and then leave. And so that was my only knowledge of what that is. Right. And I always just assumed it was Reserve Guard, C-130, that's it. Never knew anything else beyond that.
They had VMFA 142 was there, so they had again, it was a reserve base for the Marine Corps, but they had F-18s. They still may have F-18s up there now. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff up there. And they also had this giant wind tunnel that they did all the testing for Lockheed in. So they would, I saw them put the F-22 in this giant wind tunnel, and they would bring in NASCAR, vehicles to test their, whatever they test on those things. It was it's a pretty cool place.
Wow.
They got a lot of cool stuff up there.
That's a lot more high speed than you'd picture, like just a reserve airfield.
I had no idea. And the fact that it's just north of Atlanta, I had no idea that it had all of that stuff and the history like that. I should know better than that, but
and they have, yearly there's an air show. So if you ever get a chance, you should definitely check out the air show. I mean, I've seen the Blue Angels there.
Show.
Yeah, you do the air show. That'd be great. That'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So how long did you end up staying there? Did you end up getting assigned anywhere else?
No, I was there the whole time.
Get out of here.
No, it was great. I mean, I traveled often, right?
Yeah.
So we go to 29 Palms for CACs, and the unit did a lot of cool missions. Like we went down to Trinidad, Tobago, and burned marijuana fields with DEA. I mean, we had some pretty cool missions, but I pretty much was all there. So I had the best of both worlds.
Wow.
But was that cool for you? Because, like for me, the reason why I didn't go into the Air Force or I didn't really go into the Marine Corps or Navy or anything like that was because I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge, man. I was down there in the panhandle of Florida. It was nothing but military. And the last thing I wanted was to be assigned there. Right. I wanted to get out of there. So did you ever get this thing of, damn, man, I didn't,
Well, that was the plan.
You asked for it, but
Well, the plan was I'd always been an aviation buff, and joined when I went to the squadron. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to fly Cobras. I thought that was the coolest mission ever. And the pilots are all characters, and I was like, I can see myself doing that.
Yeah.
And that was the trajectory I took. I was able to get my degree while still in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So I wanted to be a pilot. And the funniest thing is, the CO, when I first checked in, his name was Lieutenant Colonel John Crowley. He ended up being a 2-star general with the Marine Corps. We were at 29 Palms at one point, and, he was like just a gentleman. He was asking me, hey, what do you want to do? What are your plans? And I was like, hey, I think I want to fly Cobras. And he was like, oh, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was 1994, and so there was all these cuts in the military, and he was like, here's the thing you got to know if you want to do this. You're going to be in pools. So basically, the flight training could be extended up to, like a ridiculous amount of time. I want to say 11 years. And then you would owe your contract on the backside of that.
Right.
So you could be in flight training for 11 years in the Marine Corps until you get your wings and you're a fully qualified, helicopter pilot. So we were at 29 Palms, and I don't know how this happened, but I drew like the short stick or whatever. I'm driving him and a bunch of dudes out to the flight line. Two things happened. I got pulled over by the MPs. We're in 29 Palms. I'm going like 27 and a 25, right? Yeah. Dude walks up, and he's like, oh, we're going to let your chain of command know. And my CO was sitting in the back. He goes, hey, consider him chastised. Let's go. We got to get to the flight line. And the next thing was, he looked over, and I'll never forget it. He was super serious. He goes, hey, listen, I love the Marine Corps, but if this isn't what you're not positive, you want to spend the rest of your career in the Marine Corps, he's like, right now may not be the time. And I took that to heart. I opted on that day to not go forward with being a Marine Corps pilot.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you would have ended up down there at Whiting Field, and you'd have gone through fixed wing, and then hopefully you'd have got helicopter. Because once again, a lot of guys go there thinking they're going to get a helicopter, and they don't.
That's right. I've got tons of friends who blow an eardrum out or whatever the case is. Yeah. They just it never worked out for them.
Well, and that's like one of the hardest flight programs to pass anyway.
Right.
I mean, it's I believe the hardest.
Yeah.
To be a pilot in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah,
the numbers are against you.
The numbers are certainly against you.
Yeah, you think about the number of people that are in the Marine Corps versus other branches, and then you think about the number of people that actually go to flight school, and then I mean, you're
they all have to share that one helicopter.
Yeah, the one helicopter, and it's got to be working. And
sorry, guys.
No, it's fair.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's a cool story. So at that point, though, did you not even think about going to any type of flight school, even on the outside, maybe getting your civilian pilot license?
I didn't. I knew.
Never pursued it.
Never pursued any of it. No, I knew right off the rip, hey, if it wasn't going to be this, then, I'd always wanted to be a cop. I always wanted to be in law enforcement.
So you always wanted to do that as well? That wasn't like the next thing of like, well, shit, I might as well go ahead and get a job.
I remember in like 10th grade getting a book from the library. It was like DEA, ATF, and I was reading through like the career thing. I was like, oh wow, people like do this for a living and get paid for it. That's what I wanted to do. And at the time, lived in Clayton County, so Atlanta's Red Dog unit. To me as a kid, that was just the coolest thing ever. I don't know if you know what Red Dog is, but it was Atlanta's proactive. It actually stood for Run Every Drug Dealer Out of Georgia. Red Dog.
Wow.
And these dudes would roll in 4 deep, and they would just bounce out on the corner, and it was just the coolest thing ever. I was like, yeah,
wow.
That
Cool.
looks fun to me. Let's do that. So I didn't do that, obviously, but the U.S. Border Patrol, like, they come to the military bases, and they have this expedited hiring process. So they were like, hey, you could be a U.S. Border Patrol if you pass the test. So I went down to NAS Jacksonville and took the test, and lo and behold, I was a U.S. Border Patrol in 1998.
Right out of the Corps.
Right out. Yeah, right out of college, graduated college, and then, I did the expedited hiring process. And, I still to this day don't know how I passed the test, because if you're not a Spanish speaker, they have this thing called the alternate Spanish language. So it's like this made up.
Alternate Spanish language.
No, alternate language test. So basically they give you a list of like 12 rules, and they make up these sentences. So if you can apply the rules that they give you, then in theory, you should be able to learn a foreign language.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I passed this thing. There's like me and like 10 other dudes who did. So like right after that, we were off to the academy.
And how long was that?
That was 16 weeks.
Wow, I didn't know that it was that long.
Border Patrol Academy in 1998 was, only slightly less difficult than Marine Corps boot camp. It was.
No lie. Where was it at?
Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah. We had a lot of fun. You only worked Monday through Friday, so we had a lot of fun.
Oh, Charleston, great place to.
But it was there, like all the guys in my class basically came out of the military. Like we had guys that were, a couple former SEAL guys. One was 37 years old. To me, it seemed like, wow, this dude is like so old. But that dude ended up breaking all the, the obstacle course records for FLETC, which is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center.
Yeah, don't pump up the SEALs too much.
This dude, Scott Dishman, if you're listening, man, he was just amazing. Did that for a while.
16 weeks of that, and then where did you end up getting assigned then?
Chula Vista, San Diego. So I was in San Diego sector. The base was Chula Vista, so we were literally right there on the Tijuana border.
Yeah.
But that wasn't as cool as I thought it was, because again, the political, environment, it wasn't like, listening to the older guys who came up in the 70s and 80s. Their idea what the Border Patrol was and what used to be was clearly not what they wanted it to be anymore. So basically, they had all the agents sitting on what they called X's. So it was like a deterrent factor. So you would have guys sitting in the Tahoes all along the border, just deterring people from coming over. Well, at that age and that time, I wanted to be out,
kicking indoors,
doing the job out in the desert, like tracking, groups of illegals, that type of thing. That's what I wanted to do. So it was at one point where we would literally sit around in our cars and watch cops on TV, right? So we're watching real cops.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
How long did you end up staying with Border?
Not long. And it was like, I was bored to death. I wanted to go work. So that's when I left and came to the police department here in Atlanta. So I went back to the police department where I grew up.
Okay. Wait, so there wasn't another opportunity, though, within Border Patrol for you to do something different and maybe like get out of that particular role? And
no, and I've ran across this a few times in my career. It's, everybody wants to nobody wants to sit on that X and, just be a deterrent for doing your job. People wanted to do the work. So, you were stuck sitting in that car for 3 to 5 years before you could do something like go to an interior station or another station where you could actually do the job. So again, I was
3 to 5 years of doing that.
3 to 5 years sitting in a Tahoe, just waiting on something to happen, having people throw rocks over you from the other side. It's just what I was looking for.
Well, I don't know that it's much of what the American people would probably assume that border agents did, and let alone maybe even do today. You would think it'd be different, right?
Well, and to be fair, in most locations, it is. Like the Southwest border is the most porous, wild west thing you've ever seen in your life. If you go down there and you actually work it, and God love those Border Patrol agents who are still down there, because they're doing that job daily. And it's not, just illegal families who want to come over and make a better place. Everybody on the border recognizes, not to get all political about the border, but that's not what they're doing down there. And a lot of people, the American people, they would be shocked if they saw what was really happening. We're talking about train loads of narcotics, of, just terrible things coming across the border. And those frontline guys, the Border Patrol especially, they're in it every single day. It's shootouts, it's chases, it's violent criminals coming over to do whatever they're going to do here, and that's what's really going on down there.
Did you see the video of the mules coming across and people having bottles of water and giving them water as they were coming across? They were thinking that these are people coming over that are going to seeking asylum, right. And so like, here, hey, how you doing? Here's a bottle of water and some snacks or something like that. And these guys have their ruck on. I mean, they're full on mules going across. Oh, yeah. And I didn't get it.
It's crazy. It's not like weed. It's like these dudes have bricks of heroin on them coming across. Yeah.
Right.
Were you guys cognizant of like human trafficking back then?
Yes, very very much so.
Okay, so
Yeah. So, but it was different, right? I mean, it was no one, as long as I've been doing this, no one ever wanted to, keep a good family away from opportunity, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But the human trafficking has always been like some, unknowing family deep in Mexico will pay a smuggler to get their children across, the border. And they often will spend their whole, like every penny they have. And, they've leveraged their whole life to send a child across. Well, the smugglers are using those kids. I mean, oftentimes the kids would never make it to the original destination, and that's another thing that the American people just don't see.
So what happens to those kids if they don't make it to their original destination?
Man, I've seen them sold at truck stops.
Holy smokes!
Like, really? Yeah. I mean, that type of human trafficking is a real thing. Yeah.
And
so
we've had guys on here that have created nonprofits, former guys, that were in the soft community, that they figured, all right, well, I still want to take the fight to the enemy, and this is the new enemy, is human trafficking is becoming, a multi-billion-dollar operation, and so let me go find these guys, hunt them down, and turn them over to law enforcement, so they can, or at least do enough intel to be able to provide that information to the police agencies to say, here's the packet. All you got to do is go there, knock on the door, type of thing. Because there's some limitations, obviously, that they can't do as private citizens, even if they're owning a nonprofit or whatever. But, when I've had those guys on and they've talked about those things, it's pretty frightening.
It is.
People just don't understand not only that, but how big it's becoming and how acceptable it seems to be, or people seem to be turning a blind eye to it. It's used to be when a kid was missing, you automatically assumed it was a parent that that was engaged or something, or the kid ran away, or something like that, or unfortunately, they may have gotten abducted and were probably
but it's like one crazy person.
Yes, it's
a crazy kidnapper took a kid. It's not like an organized.
Well, it's
organized.
Yeah,
crime.
it's organized. I mean, there are certain organizations on the Southwest border that you have to, like, if you're going to move anything, people, product, whatever, you have to pay this organization. So it's about money, and unfortunately, human trafficking is not what I work on now, but I still see it in everyday life. I mean, you can recognize. You can recognize stash houses. I mean, it's still a real thing. And I still have friends that work down on the Southwest border, and they're doing things daily that the American people would be shocked about.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's, whatever gets into the news media that they want to cover. And then, obviously, again, not getting too political, but the whole idea is that most people just want to live inside their bubble, and that's about it. But now when I see a photo, like even in this area, you see a photo of somebody, hey, 14-year-old Sally's gone missing, hasn't been seen. She was supposed to be at practice and Well, there was even a GI, a female that I think is recently I posted on Instagram where
she's missing.
She left training and was supposed to go back home, and she never made it back home. So it's like something's not right here. You know, when you see those types of things, there's a number of things that pop in your head, and now it's not anything good. And human trafficking, for me at least, pops inside my head. Like, wow, it could be real. It could be, like this guy, he talked about situations where it was the boyfriend, and it was months of normalcy, and then all of a sudden, something bad went down. He told her that, hey, we got to stop by my friend's house. I got to pick something up. Let's go on the side. And then when he leaves, and she can't get out the door, and that's it. Type of thing. And
it's crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So you came back to Atlanta. You went to the Atlanta PD.
No, Clayton County.
So you did go back to. So
I went home.
You went home, but that's when you started in Clayton County. So you left the Corps, go to Border Patrol, then go to Clayton County.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, what a shock that must have been.
It was the most fun I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah, I love the police department. The guys that I worked with, most of the guys on my zone were former military guys, right?
Yeah.
So everybody took care of each other. The whole environment of that in that time was a lot different than it is now. I mean, people didn't. They've always felt a certain way about law enforcement, but myself and other guys, we started law enforcement to make a positive difference. And a lot of those guys were able to do it in that community. And a lot of those guys that I worked with are now, they're one of them's the chief of police in Clayton County. I still talk to him every now and again. So,
okay.
That was one of. I really enjoyed that time of my life.
Yeah. Did you have to go through their academy or anything?
I only had to go through. I went through the whole academy, but I didn't have to.
Okay. I
only had to do like Georgia law or one course, but they were like, "Hey, listen, you can go to the whole academy." So I was like, okay, I'll do that. No court, workout. Okay, sounds good to me. Let's do it. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you just a regular police officer? Did you end up doing anything like SWAT or anything like that? Or
I didn't. I never did SWAT, but I worked in narcotics. And I was a street officer, and just answering calls, working on a 2 to 10 p.m. shift, evening watch. It was just a lot of fun. A lot of guys. I lived in a courtesy officer with my roommate, made $32,000 a year. I had a truck and a boat, and I thought I was like the richest person in the world, right? So now I worked patrol, then went to narcotics, and then September 11 happened.
Yeah.
And then, we knew a guy who was one of the original 24, 27 air marshals that had been doing the job before the terrorist attacks, and he basically came to the police department. He's like, hey, and you guys who have military experience, been policing for 3 to 5 years, have a college degree, hey, we're hiring, and we have direct hire authority. So I was like, I'll do it. And I ended up getting picked up for the Air Marshal Service.
Okay, so now this is probably one of the most secretive things because you're not supposed to know who's a marshal on the aircraft. The whole idea, right, is that you're supposed to be incognito. And
that's right. You're supposed to just blend in and be on the airplane.
Right.
None of us blended in to be on the airplane. Yeah. So I did that for a while. That was a lot of fun. The training was crazy.
So what? How many months or whatever did you end up having to go through training on that?
So I got hired in early 2002. So 9/11 happens. I'm hired right in 2002. And my class, they literally sent us up to the training base, which is in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and they gave you 2 weeks, and all you did was shoot. I mean, shoot for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. They're like, hey, when we can afford to bring you guys back, we'll put you through additional training. But that's all it was at the time. It was like a 2 week. The thought was everybody has been to law enforcement academies. All these guys are military. Like backgrounds are vetted. We had to get our TSSCI. Or we didn't get SCIs at the point. We just got top secrets. But they, they bring you through. They put you through the 2 week training, and it was like that's when I met all these dudes who either were or allegedly, special operation types. And it was different. Like no more rules or use of force continuum like you would see in a police department.
Right.
It was straight rules of engagement. Like if this person does that, this is what you were authorized to do, and it blew my mind.
Wow.
2 weeks of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like a serious crash course, and then having to get right into the fight.
I'm guessing you had pretty strict marksmanship
it
criteria.
Was yes, it was it was awesome training, and the quals were super, super strict. I mean, you have a very, very limited mission there.
Right.
But the training was awesome. At least the fire, the marksmanship training was incredible.
Yeah.
So no training on like this is what you want to be looking for, and keeping your head on a swivel, and
all of that stuff. But it was all based around shooting. It was also
That's wild.
It was super wild. I mean, it was also based on the flight deck, right? There's one way in at the cockpit, and that is what you're looking for. And it was a surreal time. But 2 weeks training, that you get a new weapon systems, and then you're. Hey, here's your flight. Have fun going back and forth to Washington D.C. for the next 10 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So did you guys have like a route? Did you guys switch it up, or is
they would say it was threat based matrix?
Okay.
And they hired a lot of guys off the rip, so they would you would get a flight schedule monthly, and it would be like, they would say that the flight matrix was based off of critical infrastructure, clearly. There was a lot of Washington D.C., a lot of New York, like all these things that would be, potential targets. Right. So we flew a lot of domestics for the first couple years, and then things started to happen. You had the guy who tried to blow himself up with his underwear bomb, and so then it was like, guess what? Everybody's going to Amsterdam. So a lot of that stuff happened.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I've always, like, especially during that time frame when I was doing flying for business, I always, thought, well, on some of these flights, going to D.C., going to specific places, I figured more than likely somebody on this aircraft. And so for me, it was one of these things. Sometimes I'd look around and go, is it him?
Yeah.
Is it her? Who is it?
Oh yeah, I've played that game.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's he at?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to look too hard.
Yeah.
Who's the person watching every person getting on this aircraft?
Yeah. Then you realize it's you because you're looking for the guy.
Yeah.
Everybody else digging in their stuff and everything, and you got one person. That.
I gotta ask you though, because flying is not always the most enjoyable thing. That's got to be kind of miserable.
It was miserable.
Okay.
It was miserable, man. I mean, it was. I was so thankful for the opportunity, and I really wanted to give back, and I believed in it. Like,
it's a cool mission.
It was a cool mission,
but you're paying for it.
Oh man, those guys now. I mean, they're suffering from health problems. All the different time changes. Like if you're so there's sleep issues.
Food, sleep,
and that's causing long-term health issues.
Super long,
Wow.
Which was I was looking for a way out. When it came time, I even, I flew missions for years. I was an international team leader, just like most guys were. Right. And then, they offered a position at headquarters in DC. They were like, hey, we're opening up a liaison division. And the air marshals are part of the TSA. And so everybody has to deal with TSA at some point. Like if you want to get even different units, military units, when they need to get equipment through the airport, different federal law enforcement organizations, when they need to get equipment through the airport or personnel through the airport, I went up and I basically was the liaison between those guys and TSA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
almost back to aircraft operations again, but just
everything was like kind of coming together, right? So I knew cops, and I knew, unfortunately, how some of the bureaucracy went with the airport. So I was able to, sort of build bridges there.
Yeah,
and I did that for a while.
I got to ask you before we move on, what was your favorite part of being an air marshal? What was the best perk?
Oh, the international travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the international travel was great.
How long did they let you stay once you get there?
So not long. I mean, we would fly in. It's really no secret that we were in, like, Amsterdam was covered, pretty much for a period. And so we'd be in Amsterdam for 2-3 days. So that was a lot of fun.
So it wasn't a churn and burn. I mean, where you get there, 24, 36 hours, you're back on a bird.
Living on an airplane.
No, that is exactly what it was. But you would get like 36 hours. You would land, you would get to sleep, you would get to go out and have dinner and drinks if you chose, and then it was back to the airport.
Oh, geez, that's like brutal, man.
Oh, it was bad. So 3-4 day trips, like you would leave Atlanta and go wherever you went, and you'd be back, and you do that again in 2 days. And in the very beginning, they really didn't have their act together. Like they didn't realize. This guys cannot sustain this type of flight pattern. I mean, it's there was all kinds of problems. But I think they worked some of those out. But when I had the opportunity to get off the flight schedule and go work, in in a different unit within the Air Marshal Service, I jumped on that all day long.
Yeah. So what do you think kind of experience that gave you for maybe later on? Do you feel like getting into Air Marshal and especially into the operational component of it, logistics, that it kind of helped you prepare you or something? Or was it just like another chapter in the book?
Well, I mean, it did. I learned, I've always learned something wherever I've been. And I absolutely learned about working with different stakeholders and, how the give and the take. And, I without a doubt, it was a very valuable experience. I learned a lot about how the aviation industry works. I learned a lot about U.S. infrastructure. So I learned a lot. Mm-hmm. And I also met some of the most interesting people and mentors that have basically helped me out since then. I met one of the guys who, he was a giant mentor, Patrick Sullivan. He was a Secret Service agent who was a special agent in charge of, I want to say the New York office before he came to the Air Marshals after he retired, and he became a deputy assistant director. And he, this guy introduced me to just all kinds of things and people that I would have never otherwise known. So, and I ended up promoting as an air marshal. And the funny story, I told that guy, I was like, hey, I ride motorcycles when I'm passions, when I'm not working. And I told him, I was like, hey, listen, I'd like to go anywhere that doesn't have a helmet law. And I was thinking, Florida, Tennessee, or Texas, one of those places. So, put the packet in, I score well, and they're like, hey, congrats, you got promoted, and there's no helmet law. It was Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'd never been to I've flown into Minneapolis, once or twice, but yeah. So,
great writing letter.
3 months a year. Yeah. It was. So,
that's rough. How long were you in Minneapolis?
I was there as a Air Marshal supervisor for like 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
And then I just had enough. So I ended up going to Homeland Security Investigations.
Okay.
I think I can say that.
My God, I don't think that there's nothing that you haven't done in like law enforcement in some capacity, it seems like. And so, but let's back up. So up to this point, what was like, looking back on it, what was some of the craziest moments, and was there a specific thing along this path that was probably crazier than others within the law enforcement community? Was it being a police officer, being a border patrol? And crazy could be anything that you think of,
There was just so much crazy, like the whole 9/11 period, being a police officer, and like the world stopped, right? Rightfully so. Listen, nobody. I mean, to say that people weren't going to domestic calls is not true. We were doing that, but no traffic, no enforcement on any other thing. They basically they pulled everything, and they just put police officers around the airport. That's the whole police department. They canceled off days. The most random thing that someone might find suspicious, it was like they were dispatching, like it was a tier 1 emergency, lights and sirens. Wow. Hey, there happens to be this person over here and they're parked near the airport. Well, maybe they had a flat tire, but that's not how it was treated. It was everybody's going. It was a crazy period. The whole thing was crazy and surreal,
Yeah. Wow. So how many years total did you end up spending Air Marshal? It sounds like about 5, 6?
About 8.
8?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was like 3 first, and then you went to the operational side of it.
That's right.
Administrative.
Well, it was more like 5, and then I went to, about 4 or 5. Then I went to headquarters, worked in our liaison division, and it was really cool. I worked with all the state patrols, all their executive protection details. As they're moving their governor through the airport, they were just having all kinds of problems. These screeners that 4 weeks ago were whatever, and now they're telling the governor of whatever state, hey, you can't come through here. So these troopers are they're standing on the desk yelling and screaming, and they would say, hey, Don, go down and see if you can work this out. So I was able to do that, and I was really successful with it. And that was one of my biggest accomplishments. Like, I really enjoyed being able to help those guys do their mission, and cut out lots of the red tape. So I guess if I had to look at it, that was probably my favorite memory of the Air Marshal Service. Yeah.
Did you ever miss the military to this point? Especially with 9/11 hitting.
I did. I really did. I had questioned my whole decision. Hey, what? Right now, I'd probably be flying Cobras if everything worked out. It would have been. I thought about it continuously, but at that point, I was too far into it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely. But interestingly, all the guys that that came through the Air Marshal Service, like at a certain point, they were all operators, right? They're all Rangers. They're all at some point I was like, hey man, who's driving the trucks? Who's cooking? And everybody dudes are tier 1 operators. Where is everybody else doing? Am I the only one who is not a frontline, tip the spear dude?
That is funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was going down during that time frame, but stuff really started picking up like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, in Afghanistan, I guess.
Yeah.
It was going on the whole time for special operations, but
yeah,
I mean, those guys would have been, if they were in the Air Marshal Service at that point, then they were pre-GWAT, whatever.
Yeah,
cool guy that they said they were, but
that they said they were.
There were a lot of guys who were cool guy everythings, and I was like, come on, guys, not everybody. But.
Well, I think it's changed now too. You could get away with shit like that back then. There was no social media,
right?
And now it's like you post a patch that doesn't belong on your shoulder, and
you get prosecuted for stolen honor.
You're gonna get caught. Because we can vet you.
Yeah,
and we got better network, but
there were cool. There were legit guys that were part of the program, and one that we knew then, like Tommy Wilburn, Norm Hooten, like those guys that if you watch Black Hawk Down, they were in the movie. I mean, so you knew that they were the real deal.
And they were a part of what? The Homeland Security?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where you went to next, but
no, they were actually affiliated with the Air Marshal.
Oh, okay.
Program. Yeah. I think I can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can say that because it was all public, knowledge. Norm was down there. Who's I met him a few times. There were a lot of really good and interesting people, but it also brought along people that weren't really what they claimed.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
So you went from being an Air Marshal to Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm.
That was a relatively when did Homeland Security like fully stand up?
Well, right after 9/11.
Right. So it's relatively new at this stage.
Right.
When you're coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
Brand new.
Was it still kind of clunky? Like didn't really know what their roles were?
I went through at a time. I had FAA credentials. I had TSA credentials. I had DHS credentials. I mean, they could not get their act together. So there was a lot of growing pains.
Yeah.
But I feel like now it almost makes sense how they have it organized. Like maybe that's one decent thing that came of the whole reshuffle.
Because in the beginning, wasn't a whole lot of, we're not transferring information. Everybody's trying to pee on their territory and very much siloed. Everybody was one, of course, like.
Well, that was the big criticism about 9/11. It's like, okay, Agency A didn't know what Agency B was doing.
That's right.
And that's why this, was able to slip through the cracks and happen.
Yeah. I don't feel like, there's still a little bit of that, but I don't think it's anywhere near on the scale that it used to be.
No. Can't be.
No, I hope not. Anymore.
Well, I'd hope that by now, I hope you've gone through the growing pains and you guys have it figured out, type of thing by now.
Yeah.
But
well, I think because I was in Afghanistan from basically 2006 till 2012, and you could see the progression. It's like, okay, now we're going to bring in, this organization into our, intel circle, or we're going to act on, something that happened in God knows where from some other agency, and you're like, wow, we're really. Like, there's no more. You're just Ranger doing Ranger mission. Like, it doesn't matter where the intel comes from. It doesn't matter whose command came up with it or what agency. Like, if it was actionable or it was relevant. Like, I kind of watched that evolution because from 2006 to 2012, it was a big change.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say actually about that, but we're talking to each other.
That's right.
So.
Well, Homeland Security, I think, when it originally came up, everybody was sort of like, okay, it kind of makes sense and everything. But like with any organization, everybody's trying to find their way and trying to carve out their niche and their money, get their money.
Yeah, it's about budget, right?
There's only
justify your budget.
Right. There's a finite amount of dollars. And so because of that, everybody's trying to justify, and you start seeing a lot of overlap, and then you start seeing agencies that are not playing nice together any longer, and the whole bit because of that. And I would hope that now we've kind of had enough time frame to get beyond that and sort that out. But there's new threats now, that are out there that are hitting us, and it may not necessarily be a 9/11 type of attack. It could be, but now you've got cybersecurity attacks. You've got, the issues or challenges that we're having with the open border and people coming across. There's still the unknowns of what's coming in. We've got Afghanistan drawing down that we're bringing in and trying to vet individuals that have been brought over, and then there's other stuff.
Yeah,
so.
they're actually. I just heard they're actually Afghanis that came over that are on military bases that are basically they're still being vetted, and they're federal law enforcement agencies that's all they're doing right now is basically guarding the military bases where these individuals are at. I mean, again, not to get political, but I didn't know until I get this inter-office memo. Hey, you want to come out to this military base? And no, not really. Not really. Thanks for the offer. Yeah. I didn't even know that was going on. Thought we had that thing worked out before this.
No, that's been going on for a while. I know it was Fort Bliss in Texas. There was a school kind of thing going on, kind of like School of Americas. We bring the Afghan partner force, and they'd be going through the program, and they just wander off the base, and they're kind of, oh, shucks. That was on our end of it. I'm sure that some other agency that I wasn't privy to as a young ranger was picking up the slack.
Picked it up, yeah.
I remember we did an exercise at Fort Bliss, and we had noticed the Afghans there, and we're like, oh, what are those guys? And they're like, oh, it's like kind of like School of Americas. We got those guys here. We're training them. It's all right, partner force, whatever.
Are you familiar with School of Americas?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then, there was an article in, I don't know, Military Times or something, and 13 of them had just decided, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
Like, they can't stop them. Like, I don't get to go on pass without signing a leave form. I'm a fucking American.
Yeah.
And this guy, we know that there's blue on green in Afghanistan. Like, our Afghan partners, sometimes they get leveraged by the Taliban, or they're just a bad person to begin with, and they'll shoot up Americans, and that could certainly happen here. Hopefully they don't wander into a Walmart and buy an AR, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing is just guarding the bases.
My understanding is, that they're just literally guarding the bases. I mean, they got a whole operation name for the whole thing, and I don't know if I can talk about that, but it's just the whole thing's strange to me. I had no idea.
So these are Afghans that are coming post.
Yes. That are on some military bases, and who would have known? I didn't know, but I'll tell you this: I'm not going out there and babysitting.
Yeah,
no,
unless someone above me tells me, yeah, you are. Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right, so Homeland Security, what did you end up doing there?
I was an investigator assigned to the Southwest border. I was down in Eagle Pass, Texas.
So you got to go right back, but
right
Southwest,
back.
but not Chula Vista. But
so I was between Del Rio and Laredo, right on the border, right on the other side of the Mexican city, Piedras Negras.
Okay, so what is the Border Patrol and Homeland Security? How do they end up or do they interact?
So, they do. The Border Patrol is basically the front line, right? Mm-hmm. So they are guarding against illegal goods and commodities, and people that should not be here that have entered without authorization. I think that's the correct term for it now.
Right.
You can't say illegal. But Homeland Security investigations, they're the criminal investigators. So if there are crimes that are being committed, it's mosely narcotic smuggling. Okay. That's basically what I did. So we would be, there were very few agents it was us and DEA that were in Eagle Pass. And it would be basically, hey, Customs has caught this ginormous load of dope that's coming in the interior. You guys need to come out and do the investigation. So they would recover it, and then we would do the follow-on investigation, whether that meant, doing controlled deliveries of that substance to whoever was supposed to get it in the interior, or, maybe things got stolen. So we're the criminal investigators.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess this begs the question. We have the DEA, mm-hmm. and we have DHS. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's some overlap there if y'all are doing narcotics as well.
Right.
As DEA. But you work hand in hand.
We worked. So in our building at Eagle Pass, it was just DHS, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, and DEA. Okay. And DEA had the narcotic smuggling of it, but if it was coming across the border or if it was bulk cash, for instance, going back south, then HSI would have primary jurisdiction.
Okay.
HSI have enormous authority. Yeah, they have. Yeah, they absolutely.
I remember when they formed DHS. It's like this is kind of a slippery slope because the scope of their authority is so huge.
It is,
and
it includes immigration. All old customs laws. So basically, they're customs. They're customs and immigration kind of melded into one. That's what HSI is, and it's. I don't work for them anymore, but I loved my time and I learned a lot. There are a lot of really, really good, solid people there. And any guys that are looking to get out of the military, that are looking in that line of work, they are super, vet friendly. I would recommend that.
So why didn't some of these agencies just roll up? It just listening to this, it sounds like DEA should have rolled maybe to DHS if you're going to make DHS the primary, and they're going to more or less own the umbrella or a larger component. You know what I mean? I'm just, I don't know. I'm the normal Joe looking at this.
Well, DEA is a Department of Justice component. So, you have Department of Homeland Security and then you have Department of Justice.
All right.
So I now work for a Department of Justice component, law enforcement component.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, DEA, they focus on narcotics and money laundering. That's what DEA is doing right now. These other agencies are focusing on other types of crimes that are connected to smuggling of any kinds. But there's just so much work that everybody can work drugs as much as you want to. I don't do that much anymore. But if I wanted to, it would not be hard. You can't walk in certain areas of Atlanta without tripping over a kilo of methamphetamine. I mean, it's just it's there. There's a lot of it.
So, you started out, you did narcotics, you just said, back in Clayton County. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like some of the stuff that you did there helped, at least it's a different type of level, obviously, but do you feel like any of that initial training really helped you even later on? Or?
Everything's helped. Everything. It's been cumulative and it's all helped. I've learned, I learned so much being a street officer. Learned how to talk to people, learned, It's one thing to go straight into one of the big federal agencies and have zero experience of how to really deal with anyone from the homeless person on the street to some doctor who may be having the worst day of his life, right? So you learn how to talk to each and everyone in between, and I found that just talking to people, that's what's been the most helpful for me in my career. I just feel comfortable.
Yeah. So in the Homeland Security, you're on the narcotic side of it. What was it again, like your total mission? What were you kind of focused on? What was your main focus? You can talk about it.
Yeah, I can. It was. It was drugs and human beings being smuggled.
So it was human trafficking then too.
Yes, unfortunately, we would be called out in the middle of the night. Hey, Border Patrol's interdicted a load of 100 human beings, and they have 2 suspected coyotes or smugglers. So, we'd drive out in the middle of nowhere and we would help Border Patrol process everybody. And then we would interview the smugglers and try to determine if we could identify what organization that they were working with or on whose behalf. And then we would take those investigations further. Then we would start tracing back to other networks. Okay. I didn't do a lot of that because there was just so much, narcotic trafficking. It is, and bulk cash smuggling. So they would bring heroin and meth in, usually in a liquid form, but they're super creative how they hide it and bring it in. It would blow your mind if you've seen some of the schemes they use to bring this stuff in.
It's got to be impressive.
It's super impressive. Yeah, like if they would just channel their ingenuity into like something legit, right?
Something legal.
Yeah, they would be bona fide, great business people, right? Anyway, so they would bring it in, and they would go to a major hub like Houston, Dallas, wherever, Austin, San Antonio, and
this is up through Texas.
Oh yeah, right across the border. And they did this. They did this at every point of entry. So it was drugs and people coming north, and bulk cash going south. So we did a lot of narcotics, and then once you figure out what you're looking for, like I could tell you who's bringing bulk cash back across the border. So we would do outbound operations where we would target certain individuals based on a criteria, and there it is, like 4 giant duffel bags. Just you couldn't put more cash in them. So we would seize that, or CBP would actually seize it, and then we would start working back on the financial aspects.
Yeah, chase the money
Find where
trail.
it came from.
Chase the money trail. Yeah.
Well, how do you do that in terms of cash? If it's cash, is it harder? I mean, the serial numbers and stuff, but I mean, they
dealing
laundered it, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, no.
Oh.
It's just
Unlaundered.
It's unlaundered. It's in a bag that's going back to Mexico, and they don't care how they get it. I mean, just bring the cash.
I guess I was just thinking it was a little bit more sophisticated,
It's
like
not.
back in the mob days, where they laundered the money,
Nope.
So I got to ask you, what do you do? All right, let's say I managed to get a couple pallets of $100 bills in my box truck down to Mexico. What do I do with that then? I use it as currency amongst my other cartel members.
Absolutely. Okay. So you use it to finance, bigger trafficking schemes. Money is king. I mean, the U.S. dollar still holds a lot of weight.
So I'm not having to change that into pesos or gold
So
or anything like
so
that.
that's what I was
can
curious.
pay a crooked, I don't know, trucking company. I'm using my imagination here because I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
To ship some stuff, and I'm like, hey, just here's some American money, and they're like, okay, that's cool.
No, not at all. It's not that sophisticated. It is getting more sophisticated with digital currency. Like now that it's trending
like
towards
Bitcoin
that.
and stuff.
Bitcoin,
like
different.
Okay.
Yeah. It's trending that way. But when I was down there, no, it was sell 50 keys of whatever, get this amount of money, and it's like legitimately palletized money that comes back. And then you don't have to pay crooked people. You buy whatever you need. If you need new transportation networks, just buy new tractor trailers.
Yeah,
they don't sneeze at it, man.
Wow.
Need a truck to bring with. They'll just drop the cash. So it's and then we often dealt with human sources. Those people are basically the low hanging fruit. So we would get them to work for us, and then they would lead us back to locations on the interior, and that's how our investigations typically would go. Wow. Yeah.
Is there like a method of smuggling that you saw that was like particularly creative or stands out in your mind, like somebody trying to get something in, and you're like, man,
I saw a train. I saw a train, like a boxcar that was loaded with high end marijuana, which nobody cares about weed anymore.
Right.
But a trainload of it.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. I mean that was impressive to me. I was like, they just didn't care.
Yeah.
Coming north or
coming north. They put a train load of packaged, like bailed out high end marijuana and brought it right across the border. And they wouldn't have found it except there were some.
Wait, you got to have train tracks, and tracks have to come from the south to the north.
Absolutely.
Are we not like
no?
What?
No. I mean, they probably wouldn't. The truth is they can only screen so much.
So
cargo.
It's more of an audit. We'll screen 20% or 15% kind of thing. But
that's right.
Holy cow!
You got to imagine the cost. There's
there's
no way that you could monitor.
But this is the kind of stuff like he was saying that American people, if they found out about it, well, you got a damn train that we're only hitting some percentage of time.
That's right.
And there's probably a larger percentage of time we're not. Mm-hmm. And there's something coming on that train all the time, going both directions.
Yeah. And there's so much commerce in between,
People assume there's a guy, man, like, at the gate that, sorry, where's your papers? Let me check all your...
It's not like getting on an airplane where everybody takes off their shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the perception.
Again,
at the
it would blow your mind if you just went down there and spent a little bit of time and saw how business is done. I mean, if you look at the pure volume of freight and cargo coming north and going south, you realize there's just no way. So it's a game of odds, right? For if you are a trafficker down south and you want to bring whatever up here, then just throw everything at it, and you're going to come out. You're going to come out good. It would be my guess.
Right.
But I literally saw a train of
marijuana. Like how many cars?
It was one giant car. Like I don't know how long the car is, but I'll tell you this. There were guys in my office that we were like, holy shit, who's going to come help us unload this? Right? This is no. Forget about who's guilty here. How are we going to get this off this train? This is going to be like an all day thing.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be like the size of a big sea container.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So can't they take those things and like put them? I guess only maybe some of them you can actually put on a truck or on a trailer.
Yeah, that you could. And to be clear, the Customs and Border Protection, they have these giant they're like massive X-ray machines that they can run the freight through, but they just don't have the time you would never get like commerce in the United States if you did that at 100% or whatever their number is.
Dude,
you're talking about like quadrupling or more the cost of.
This is blowing my mind though, because getting back to your whole point about what they cause us to do, and I mean even now I don't want to get too far into the whole political, but what they're causing Americans to do, to do something that should be relatively normal.
Right? You know why they make you take off your shoes?
Well, because the shoe bomber. Yeah,
I'll have to tell you that story sometime, Rob. It's funny. It's
well,
really
go ahead,
funny.
drop.
Well, I'll tell you this guy. So you probably know this because you're an air marshal.
The guy from Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was the guy that was like, I think he was mentally challenged.
Yeah,
in
he
the
had
first
it in
place.
the shoe.
He had it in his shoe, and he was using
damp.
cannon fuse for laces. Yeah. So smarter people than him set him up. And they said, hey, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to light these cannon fuse like you get at the hobby store for shoelaces. So you're light it on fire with your lighter, and that's going to burn around your foot. It's going to ignite this bomb that's built into the sole of your shoe. Well, this knucklehead decides that he should wear his shoes the day before. I think he was in London.
Yeah.
It's rainy. So he's walking around, stopping
so the rain already washed off all the...
Which cannon fuse doesn't burn fast anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, and it's a whole shoelace from the top of his shoes. So, like, this wasn't a great plan in the first place, but that's why you take off your shoes at the airport, because somebody who is mentally handicapped with wet shoes and a hobby store cannon fuse tried to blow up a plane in like probably the least effective way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I also heard there was a flight attendant on that plane that like tuned him up with her shoe.
I think it was his shoe.
I think so.
I think he took off his shoe to light the cannon fuse, and somebody took it away from him and just beat the brakes off that boy.
I didn't know that.
That
was my favorite part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Beat him with his own shoe.
I just remember. What year was that?
Shoot, I don't know, 2006 or
okay. 7. So that makes about right. So I was going through an airport. It was Kansas City, and I was traveling on business out there, staying up a bioprocess manufacturing facility out in Lawrence, Kansas. And anyway, I'm going to the airport, and this TSA agent, was telling me I got to take off my shoes, and I'm like, why? I just shoes. I mean, you can scan me in that damn scanner and know I don't have anything in my damn shoes or whatever. She's like, sir, I'm not going to ask you again. Take off your shoes. And so I'm one of these guys that I'm like still talking. Dude, they like gave me almost the full strip search after that. They got so mad at me. So step over here. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Just step over here, sir. Don't be talking. And did the wand, and then had me take off some stuff, and then patted me down and the whole bit, only because I gave them a hard time about the shoes. About the shoes. Yeah. And it was right after that. And then
It's justifiable though. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We got the X-rays. Don't make me take off my shoes.
Well, my thing is there's no consistency. I've been through airports a million times. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I mean, what's that all about?
Well, and if you go overseas, other countries aren't doing the no shoes thing. Many of them. Many countries. I mean, most of the time when I travel overseas, they don't. I'm like taking off my shoes in the airport, and people are like, don't do that.
Well, let me tell you what not to do when you come back. So you ever heard, there was this thing. It was like, it was a retention system called Thunderwear. It was like, you heard that?
Yes, I know about Thunderwear.
So I had on a fresh set of Thunderwear coming back from somewhere.
Okay, what is Thunderwear first?
It is like underwear that has a holster built into it. It was like
picture Spanx with a place for your gun.
Oh, sweet.
A lot of guys used to wear. So I tried the one time I had like metal in it, right?
Yeah.
So the way it works with the Air Marshal Service, when you fly into a host country, you don't get to walk around their country with your firearm.
Yeah.
You basically have arrival procedures where you'll take your gear off and you'll put it in a Pelican case, lock it up, put it somewhere with their law enforcement component. But what they don't take away from you is your holster or anything else that,
it goes with it.
Yeah, that goes with it. So, I'm getting ready. It's me and a crew of guys. We're going back, and we were somewhere in Germany. I wish I could remember where. I could tell you there are about 3 guys that remember exactly where it was at when they hear the story. But so that, I go walking through the metal detector, and it beeps, and the dude is hitting right off of where the metal's at in the Thunderwear. They have me stripped naked in this room.
No way.
Oh yeah, I was butt naked. It was great.
This is awesome.
Yeah, and the window's up, so my buddies are like knocking on the window. Like,
that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it wasn't fun when you're going through it. They could not get it. Like, couldn't understand. What do you mean there's metal in your underwear? I was like, yeah, man, it's Thunderwear.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious, though. again, you're training who you are, and yet we're questioning you that much. I mean,
it wasn't our government. I mean, it was like
Germany.
the Germans. They were like, "Hey, our security procedure is this. We don't care what kind of weird underwear you're wearing. You know, take it off."
I thought Germans were kinky. Isn't that a stereotype?
you're going to get a lot of
Maybe that's
kinky Germans.
Maybe that's what was going on.
we're going to get a lot of calls now.
Hey, call in.
A lot of caller 3.
Yeah. So a lot of weird stuff like that. You know.
That is hilarious.
Well, the whole
Thunderwear
train
is
thing,
funny.
like, it just really blows my mind. Now we got down a rabbit hole about flights and everything, but I mean, you know, again, what they have us do, but yet they're only auditing a smaller percentage of that on a train of what's coming across.
Oh, yeah.
So what was some of the other things that you saw in terms of, like, is there other major transportation things like that?
No, they're just really good at hiding things. Like, I saw half kilos of heroin they had built and like put it inside of wooden statues, and they would load those up. So I mean, you would never know unless that went through an X-ray machine, and then you see that it's actually half kilos of something, and then the CBP guys break that open, and it's half keys of heroin. Super expensive, right? But the product was very, very well put together. So it's the ingenuity is just amazing. I've seen vehicles like hollowed out, like complete traps that are hydraulic that unless you knew it was there, or if they had, some savvy CBP guy that was working the inline and he just, something was off about the interview, he would never think to send you through to have the vehicle, X-rayed. But in those cases, when they found it, man, you look at the X-ray and the whole car's hollowed out, and it's all like, what is it? What does a kilo of cocaine go for? $36,000 if you can get it to Atlanta. Yeah. So the whole car's filled out with each brick's $36,000. Think about that if they get it across.
Yeah. Well, and they know they're only going to lose so much percentage. Like it's a volume business for them.
Yeah.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
So they just send it and they get, a certain amount gets seized. Yeah. But it's kind of like if you run a store, a certain amount is going to get shoplifted.
That's right.
Like it's just.
Yeah. And the smuggling schemes it's always super. They're super clever. I mean, I just wish they would channel it like something legitimate,
So, I mean, we have that issue with like the I-75 corridor going up and down Florida. I think it's major too. It's an opportunity where, or at least it's an interstate that I think a lot of law enforcement really try to follow because of coming up from South Florida, coming through Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My current job, we work a lot of that corridor.
Okay.
And, I mean, you would be shocked. You would absolutely be shocked.
So in that case, it's not a train. I mean,
no. In that case, it's like a plane or a vehicle or other diversion tactics.
It's just crazy. I mean, you would think with our sophistication that what I mean. It's like
you would think that,
right?
Yeah,
right. I think a lot of American people probably think that that's what it is. I mean, listening devices and everything else, in the way we track down high value targets across other borders, in the means in which we used it, most people think that those same tools are used here in a way in which we should be able to live pretty much criminal safe. We shouldn't have these issues.
Right.
Well, I think what we take for granted is that the criminals are just as innovative.
They get a vote, just like the enemy. Yeah.
And it's not like they're stupid.
No,
they're making poor choices.
They're making poor choices,
but they're not.
Well, when you say the people who are making the decisions and stuff are not the ones doing this. It's the hired hands.
That's right.
So that's collateral damage. If they get caught or whatever,
they could care less. Yeah, they could care less.
And so I would imagine there's probably even decoy opportunities. Let me go ahead and send something out. This one may get hit, but if it goes through, then great. It's good.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've seen that when I was down on the border. I mean, they would send over, they would cross guys, clearly diverting attention from the Border Patrol agents that were on the boats right there on the Rio Grande. They would come across with, 2 bags or whatever, just enough to elicit a response. Right. And then while everybody's, busy doing this, they're crossing the tractor trailers and, all the other stuff right here. They do that. There is so much that comes across that border. It is just amazing.
What is when you think of the border, especially with Mexico and everything, where do you think is probably the hottest spot that's along through that border, or is it pretty much?
It's pretty honestly, it's pretty much wide open the whole way. Like if there's not a if there's not a fence or a wall in that section of the border.
A lot of people don't know that doesn't exist, right? There's an assumption, I think, by people that there is at least a wall or a fence of some capacity, but
you get out beyond the points of entry, right? You get up beyond several miles beyond that. There's nothing there is that you would be lucky to find a barbed wire fence on the border, like right along on our side of the Rio Grande. Most places, unless a farmer or a landowner puts it up, there's not going to be a barbed wire fence.
That's what I was going to say. There are some cases where that's a rancher's property, and it's it's his fence for his pasture. So
could you imagine owning that?
Time.
Yeah, could you imagine owning that property and this is happening on your land? You can't sell it. Who the hell's going to want to buy it? Because they're going to own that problem.
There are a lot of like high-end big game ranches down there. Like you wouldn't expect it, but a lot, and those are the fences you see. So, and that was interesting as well. Seeing the Border Patrol guys, like the old guys that have been out on the border for 20 plus years, they know everybody and they know every piece of that land. They don't call it by each other's ranch. They're like, have nicknames for every piece of like landmark. So these guys will go out there and, they're known. They'll have keys to the rancher's property and the rancher knows it. So let's go out, pop the lock on the key, lock it back up, and do whatever they got to do. Wow. It's a different thing down there.
Well, I know in Texas there was an organization that was like that, and there were a lot of ranchers and big game and stuff like that, and you're absolutely right. Much of what you're talking about, there was like 2 or 3 fences, but I don't think we were close to the border. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. But when you bring that up, it just kind of makes me think, okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of unusable land otherwise, maybe. Who the hell wants to build a house on it that's you're going to be living when all the time you got all these...
Yeah.
Did you experience any vigilantes down there when you were... As I know it happens.
I mean, there were like known guys, but no one really took them serious. They were sort of harmless. I mean, they would be the guys that would go out and, maybe they would find 4 or 5, illegals who were, needed food or shelter or whatever. And then they would call, hey, and, people would be like, hey, so-and-so's calling, doming these kids out again. Let's go down there. And, it was there, but it wasn't, I never saw anything crazy like I've seen on documentaries.
Okay.
No.
I've always felt like that was kind of blown out of proportion, but
I feel like it probably was. I mean, I watched documentaries as well, and you see all this nonsense going on, but I never dealt with anybody like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that are there certain areas within America that is probably being targeted more than others? I mean, I would imagine that we're talking about in terms of narcotics, maybe more impoverished, or lower areas, or then again, it's the
Atlanta
have money, who have
giant hub for illegal. Like you wouldn't believe the amount of dope that comes up here, like so much that I mean it's actually hard to fathom. So I think I know Atlanta is a giant hub for
same for human trafficking as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the further you can get product from down south to the interior, the more valuable it is. So yeah, absolutely, man. It's. I wouldn't say ground zero, but pretty close to it.
Damn. Wow. Mm-hmm. I knew it was big, or I knew it not big. I knew it was here.
Yeah.
I didn't know how big. You just sized it for me in a very scary way because, you think more like Miami or, San Diego or, places that maybe not this far interior.
Well, they're all big areas for it, but the end destination is, get it to a hub like Atlanta so you can push it north. New York City, and New York City is another destination or port city. But yeah, a ton of it just comes in here in Atlanta, and then it gets farmed out. It goes to warehouses or whatever stash location, and then it gets farmed out. Atlanta is, there's a lot here. And a lot of it comes directly from the border.
Wow. So it's straight shot.
Straight shot, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, well, there's that.
I'm just trying to imagine being that guy driving the truck, man. That just seems like a stressful commute.
Sometimes those guys don't even know what they have. They're just told, "Hey,
that's interesting.
Yeah, get this load from A to B. Yeah. We'll pay you well for it." So he has an idea of who he's working for, but
right.
But this is okay. So in the case of transportation, are these potentially immigrants that are transporting, or are we talking about they're also buying Americans that are?
I've seen it both. I've seen both. I mean, you never know. There's no like, I guess that's kind of what these organizations are good at. They pick people that, you know, look like you or I. You would never know. And oftentimes they don't even know exactly what they have or what they're doing.
Yeah.
Again, they just know, hey, you know, I'm going to get paid well for whatever I'm doing here. And the less I know, the better, right?
Yeah, the Bitcoin stuff is rather interesting because, I mean, once you start getting an electronic currency that has no exchange, you know, now it's going to become a little bit harder in the ways through security or cyber world and stuff of how you can move that money around, you know, money.
Yeah. Have you seen the Bitcoin ATMs? Have you seen one of those yet?
No.
Yeah, they have Bitcoin ATMs. Like you can go, there's on the north end of Atlanta. I've seen like 3 or 4 in the last couple months. Yeah, just Bitcoin ATMs. I don't even know how that would work.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, but apparently pretty good if you want to move money undetected.
Yeah.
Wow.
It seems like it.
Pretty crazy stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, like, after Homeland Security, how long did you end up staying with that?
I was only there a few years, and then I was able to. I'm from Atlanta, so I wanted to get back to Atlanta. Sometimes I wonder why, but I mean, I know why. I came. I got hired with my current agency, and I've always wanted to work. It's a DOJ component.
Yeah.
You know,
So this has kind of been where you wanted to go all along, or at least
always wanted to be where I wanted. You know, where I wanted to end up. I would have loved to have been here before all the other stuff, but you know, they just
But you've had such a tremendous career up to this point in terms of like we were talking about, every little thing led you to the next, and that whole history has allowed you to be really good at what you do. You know?
I hope so. Yeah,
yeah.
I enjoy it. You know, I wish that this agency was hiring years before. It's just they've not been really good about that traditionally.
Yeah.
Now, you know, we're in a cycle where we're hiring lots of guys, and I wish they would let me, you know, talk about who it is that I work for. I guess I can say they specialize in violent crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the best career ever. I mean, I can't say enough good about the organization.
Yeah.
What's it? I guess if you can, what's your favorite thing about the job that you get to do?
Well, I mean,
is it because you're stopping violent crime?
It's because the mission is violent crime.
Okay.
I mean, you're only going after the true worst of the worst, like people that I believe there's just no, you know, they need to be in prison because they're going to victimize other people. Like that, I enjoy that. That's always what it's been about for me.
Okay. So you're like fighting evil kind of.
Like truly bad people. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So, like, did you hear this 5 convicts or whatever that?
Yeah, they got loose somehow.
How does that happen?
I have no idea. I can only imagine. I guess some guards got complacent or something is what I read, and they shoved them in the cell and took their keys, and they're off in a Kia, or you know. That's what I read. You know.
Well, see, you know, we were talking about it last night because, you know, it just came out and everything. And we're like, okay, if it was me, you know, I'm thinking more sophisticated. I'd probably get the hell out of Dodge, out of the state, go, you know, somewhere in the mountains or, you know, get out, you know. They're not that sophisticated, you know. No. So, I mean, the guys you're talking about that you're hunting down, a lot more sophisticated.
Oftentimes, but you know, other times not. They're just
really
violent offenders, right? They're just They're just people that they don't. I mean, they're violent human beings. They don't think twice. They would shoot you, or kill you, or do anything to you and your family for next to no reason. They're just violent human beings. And there are a few of them out there, but those are the people that I think are really worth going.
More lone wolves than you know, like what we were just talking about earlier in terms of, you know, more crime like organizations. Yeah, is it or is it a pocket of both? Sometimes it's a lone wolf, and sometimes it's, you know, you could be up against anything.
It could be anything. Like
yeah.
In the group that I'm assigned to now, we do more organizational stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're fighting the battle of trying to figure out, okay, who within that organization would make a difference, you know, if they were off the street. So we concentrate on that. But there are other guys with my organization that they literally just go out. The community will come to them and say, or their, you know, leadership and say, hey, these are the problems in our community. We need help with this. And they have the resources and they'll take the time to figure out, okay, how do you deal with this problem?
Wow.
Okay.
And it's a very unique subset, and you know they're very good at it, and I think that's what I have. That's what I like the most.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely different from where you were in a way, I guess, because, I mean, are you still playing around in narcotics, or is it you're out of that now?
No, everybody plays around with it. A little bit. Yeah. You know, it's all part and parcel.
Yeah.
So yes, we do. But you know, when you don't really have to. At the very entry of most cases that I work, there is a narcotics angle, but it's not, hey, we're ordering 50 keys off a guy or anything huge like that. It's a smaller, even with most of my colleagues here in Atlanta, you start smaller, user type stuff, just to kind of get your foot in the door, and then you go after who is really the problem in the community.
Yeah.
So it's a unique thing. I can't. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No.
A lot of satisfaction in it. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, that would be very satisfying. And so, like, when you think too of like America's Top Wanted and stuff, is that kind of what we're talking about in a scale?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
That does sound fun.
It is. It
sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say enough good about it.
I mean, there are a lot of guys listening to this show that come from, like we were talking about, special operations community that would love an opportunity to now do something like this.
And we would love to have them. We would love to. So, you know, if you're listening and you're interested, go to the Department of Justice website, go to USA Gov Jobs.
Yeah.
And look around who's hiring right now. Put in for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd love to have them.
Yeah. Very cool.
Awesome.
Man.
Yeah.
So how many years now have you spent total police? Because we're talking 96, or was it?
98.
98.
Yeah. 98 to now. What is that? 23? Yeah.
Almost 24 years.
Yep. I'm eligible to retire in 3 years. I
was going to ask. That was my next question.
Yeah, I'm eligible in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but
you think you're going to do that, or
no? I'll stay.
Putting you on the spot. You're now getting heard. Your command's probably going to hear that.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah, he's out of here 3 years.
Oh yeah, no, they know. I mean, I had some guy in our neighborhood. He was like, "Hey, I work for Chick-fil-A. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Not right now. I mean, it sounds great." But,
Do you get free chicken?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. Go from
would they let me buy guns and machine guns in the parking lot? If not, I don't think I'd be interested right now.
Yeah. Have you seen those memes where it's the one of the cartoon characters or whatever, and I forget what it is, but something about basically having a vest and weapons in your trunk.
Oh yeah,
what was that?
What's the Kyle Rittenhouse case?
Yeah,
and the prosecutor.
Yeah, said who drives
was,
around?
What normal person drives around with a AR and armor in their vehicle?
And you see this little character sort of like,
kind of like, I'm like, well,
what's going on with that? I've not watched any of it. I would be interested to see what's going on there.
It's actually a phenomenal trial. I think it's fascinating to watch, and it seems like a really important case to me. I've been kind of tracking it through some of the YouTube channels of lawyers that can explain it to me because I'm not that bright. But unfortunately, there's a lot of theater involved too. Just my perspective, I'm a layperson. The prosecution seems to be pretty out there, trying to create a spectacle. And there's speculation that they're backstopping failure with the possibility of a mistrial. I know that the judge a couple of days ago admonished the prosecutor pretty aggressively in open court, and it was like, I can't believe you're doing this.
Yeah.
This is basic law stuff, which was, so I don't really, it's enjoyable to watch, but I don't really appreciate that because it's such an important case. You wish they would play it straight.
Yeah.
But it seems like it seems like he acted, completely in the realm of self-defense. And I know that the guy who survived the shooting, he had his bicep blown out. He basically said, this kid didn't shoot at me or aggress me until I pointed my pistol at him.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't point a weapon at somebody.
That's right.
And
didn't they have like FBI or some kind of agency drones that were
FBI drone?
I mean, how did you get like drones? You know what I mean? Like, I guess it was an intense period, but I mean, but it's very interesting that
But that's not supposed to be legal.
Right.
That's not supposed to be allowed.
There's some case law that I'm aware of. Like, I would say they're probably good there, from what I understand, if it's over a public place. But where it gets iffy is if you're using that drone to fly over someone's house where you wouldn't have reasonable expectation of privacy.
So if there's a riot going on, something like that,
I think you'd be good there.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, there's probably some lawyers like, oh, absolutely, you can't do that. But not that I have access to a drone, but I would do it. I mean, it makes sense to me.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. I mean, I remember talking with some of my buddies when the Chaz thing was going on. It's like a drone and a sniper team, and this is over in a night.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, in some cases, or and maybe even in this case, a drone might be helpful, much like in police case, you have the camera. I mean, it's no longer he said, she said anymore. Mm-hmm. There it is. It's on my camera.
That's right.
You go watch the video. The videos should be the evidence.
Oh, yeah. Weren't they arguing about what the technology is? Like if you pinch and, expand the photograph, they're like, well, how do you know it's not altered? Like there's not extra pixels that magically fall in and make it look like something else.
Yeah.
Someone told me about that. What a joke.
Yeah.
I think there's the level of sophistication of technology now is so far beyond the layperson that it's hard to understand where the lines are.
Yeah, it is.
And you want law enforcement to do their job, right? And
right.
You want all these investigative agencies to do their job and be as effective as possible. But there is a balance to be struck. And I think like you've certainly experienced this where you feel like your hands are tied because you got to follow certain rules or protocols or whatever. And you're like, I could get this guy right now.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of where it's always been that way, though, in law enforcement. I just think we're a little bit more aware of it because everybody's got a drone and a camera phone and cameras on your car and cameras in front of your parking lots.
Well, but the problem is with those is they use sound bites of that and build a case around an image of a millisecond. Right. At what angle,
that's the other thing. If you can manipulate something into just one little 1 minute segment, then it may look bad when in reality it's not that bad.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I will too.
Yeah, I think the rest of America is as well. Yeah. No matter what side you're on, definitely people are paying attention to this case because it could have major ramifications, down the line. But we'll see how this.
Yeah, it's an important case.
It is.
Yeah,
I would hate it's important they get it right.
It's important they get it right, and I'd hate to see a mistrial. Like let's do it right. We can do this right the first time.
Yeah,
and like whether this kid needs to be in jail or whether he needs to be exonerated, like let's get it over with, man.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's going to comment on it, and no one's going to have any firsthand experience.
Yeah,
I'm like you. I hope they get it right.
Yeah, that's the big thing, And I mean, if you follow what the law is written to, and I mean, you can then argue whether the law, and there are many laws that are this way, is the right law. Whether it should be reevaluated because, hey, we got it wrong, because with anything, when you speak of the government and laws, and they're trying to use their best, way of writing it, but sometimes the language of that could be manipulated and there are loopholes found and all those types of things. But at the end of the day, it's meant to protect.
Right.
It's meant to be a way in which we can govern, and I think when people can, sometimes, there's been cases where individuals have been prosecuted and it was probably a law that we should change.
Yeah.
And there has been changed. And so, but that's kind of it. We're supposed to test them and push them and see what they're supposed to do and not modify them to our best interest if we can.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we're...
Yeah.
Well, Don, I appreciate you coming in, man, and sharing your story, and especially,
thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, talking about. I mean, you had like a pretty amazing background in all the different things that you did.
Well, and, I say whenever I get fat, I just go to another academy. That's when I know it's time to get a new job.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, Don, appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
I had a good time.